I can advise that members of the public will be given an opportunity to speak during public open session, but not at other times. This meeting is being filmed, and by being present, attendees are deemed to have agreed to be filmed and to the use of those images and sound recordings. I can advise that attendees should not disclose any personal information of individuals, as this would infringe the data protection rights of that individual. And can I please ask everyone to mute their microphones when they're not speaking. Thank you very much. Okay, so item number 1, apologies from absence. I've got apologies from Councillor Knight, Councillor Gilshire, who may join us online, but it won't be physically present, and Councillor Barrett this evening as well. Item number 2, declarations of interest. Are there any disclosable pecuniary items of interest? Or sorry, Councillor Russell.
Just to say that I think we all need to declare, because it's the budget, and I forget what the right wording is. Maybe the clerk can sort that.
Okay.
But we all have to declare we have an interest because we're taxpayers in the town.
Okay.
There's a form.
I'm sure Councillor Strawn can help us with that.
No, I can't remember. I can't remember the exact wording.
I was hoping you would.
But we were allowed to discuss it because it's a common interest for everyone in the council. So if we can move the appropriate noting of the declaration of interest of all members of the council, but we're allowed to discuss it because it's de minimis in effect.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Strawn. Asia, have you got that, and can it be encapsulated in the minutes in some way? Thank you for that, Councillor Russell. And I'd also just like to not that there are any strangers to this council, but to Karim and Ernest, who are with us this evening, who are sort of stepping in for the town clerk, and will be obviously helping with the meeting in their usual thorough way. So I think we've done number 2 then in terms of declarations of interest. I assume there are the non-pecuniary. No, okay, right. Item number 3, Mayor's announcements. I've just got 3 quick announcements. Firstly, just to update colleagues, a few of us and a member of council staff went on a self-funded sort of exploratory trip to a potential partner town, twin town in France, Noisy-le-Roi and Bailly, which are a sort of commune in France. Very interesting visit and discussions with them, all sorts of different levels with voluntary groups and so on and so forth. And in due course, I guess we'll be putting a paper to council with some ideas and suggestions. But it was, I think, a very fruitful visit, and certainly welcome by the French participants and by us as a small group from Biggleswade as well. So that was it was a good weekend. The second point was I'd also just wanted to get on record, as it's the first town council meeting we've had, as a thank you, I guess, to Network Rail for clearing some of the graffiti on Crab Lane, which I know we've been trying to get fixed for a while. It's not perfect, but I think it's done the job. And I know colleagues were often critical in this chamber when public bodies don't do things. So I think it's nice to actually acknowledge when they do things, and let's hope it stays graffiti free in future. And then obviously, and then the last point, obviously colleagues will be aware we have the light switch on Friday in the town square, in Market Square. Hope a lot of you can come down to that if you're around. Lots of stalls, charity stalls, fairground, etc. And obviously it's going to be, I think, a good turnout from the town as well. Officers have been putting a lot of effort and time into it. As you know, we've got the new lights as well, Christmas lights this year as well. So looking forward to seeing that on Friday and seeing many of you there. Okay, item number 4, public open session. Do we have any members of the public who wish to say anything? Observe. That's fine, no problem at all. Is anybody online, Asia? No. Okay, thank you. Moving on then, item 5, invited speaker. We don't have one. Item number 6, members' questions. Nope. Okay, thank you. Item 7, we're going to do the minutes and recommendations at the next full council meeting, just because of the sequencing of where the meetings have happened. Number 8, obviously matters arising. There aren't any because we haven't done the minutes. Items for consideration. So we're on to the substantive business for this evening. Budget planning for 2026-27. obviously there is a pack of paperwork for colleagues to have read. I'm going to ask Ernest to sort of give a very quick introduction on items that will have changed since the papers have gone out that are sort of fresh, rather than reading the paper out from scratch. So it's just any last minute updates, and then I think we can have obviously a discussion with colleagues. There are some recommendations, and then we can go from there. Okay, so over to you, Ernest.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So in terms of main changes, there are two which I'll start with. The first one is the employer pension rate, which has reduced by 3%, and officers received the evaluation report from Bedfordshire Pension Fund, and they've confirmed that the rate has reduced, and this is going to be the rate for the next 3 financial years. And also, officers have received a confirmation from CBC about the tax base, which has increased by 1.66%. So it's all good news. And moving on to the next page, under the capital assumptions and match funding and section 106, just want to make members aware that within appendix G, page 30, the annual repayment and the capital repayment and the interest repayment for the PWLB has already been included within the budget. The annual payment comes to around 7,500, and officers will present a paper to council on the 9th of December for the refurbishment of the remaining play areas. And also officers are still waiting for the surveyor's report for the 3 sports buildings. Once we receive this report, maybe there might be the need to include additional capital expenditure within the budget. I think that I did presented this additional spreadsheet earlier on, and it's for members to to assist with the conversation. Basically, there are just assumptions that no, we are on 2.9%, but in case members want to increase the preset by 11,500, that will lead to increase of the preset by 3.54%, and 20,000 will be 4%, and 25,000 will be 4.28%, and so on. And this is just to aid the conversation. Basically, I think I'll pause there for now.
Thank you, Ernest. Karim, do you want to say anything? No, good, great. Okay, I'll go to members. Councillor Thomas and then Councillor Albone, please.
Can I ask the question about the 3%? Was that from CBC as a reduction, or was it the actual value that's gone down? How does it affect our council? Is it an increase or decrease? I wasn't quite sure.
Right, the pension or the tax base,
Pension.
or the pension. The pension is a decrease. So it used to be 26.8, so it's come down to 23.8 after the valuation. So that is the highest exposure it can be.
Okay, that's all I want.
Councillor Russell, now go to Councillor Albone.
Can I just add that there's an actuarial valuation of the Bedfordshire Pension Fund every 3 years, and it looks at each employer within the pension fund individually. So our circumstances, how many employees we've got who are receiving a pension, who are paying into a pension at the moment, it looks as our individual cases, because the Bedfordshire Pension Fund is funded by investments. So the actuaries look at the value of the investments, look at the debits that we're going to be responsible for, and set the rate accordingly. I must say, I am surprised it's gone down, but that's very good news.
Yes, I quite agree. Councillor Albone, please.
Thank you. Yeah, following on from that, we had some surprises really. The pension scheme, reduction in the employer's costs for the pension scheme, which is quite significant. And what we were waiting for, the tax base from CBC, we have that now, and that's good news as well. So that's given us more headroom than we anticipated, because there were there were lots of discussions at committees about what we can remove from the budget in order to keep the council, to keep the precept down as much as possible. But I think now that we have got some more scope, I think it might be prudent to look at some measures. In particular, the Personnel Committee removed 10,000 for which is would have been for agency costs. Now it could be that we do need that, and I think it might be prudent to put it back in. We might know a little bit more about whether we do need that or not come January, when we look at look finally at the precept and decide what the precept is. So I think I would like to propose that we put £10,000 for agency costs back into the budget.
Okay. Okay. Great. Okay. Okay, we'll go to a vote on that, Councillor. Go on, Councillor Strong.
May I suggest that we consider the whole situation before we start breaking it down into individuals?
Okay.
I've got no difficulty with the proposal, but I think we've got an overall budget that we've got to look at. There are variables in there that can still be affected, so we're just giving guidance at the moment to council and towards final precept. There's also a budget tomorrow, which last year our budgeting was affected very severely by the budget with the national insurance increase. So I think, or may I suggest, that we actually look at the things that we can do and the costs that it's likely to be, so that we can give more guidance to the officers, because I think the officers have done an excellent job in having got the budget down to this level. But we have got, I believe, a little bit of room to actually improve the services to the town by using up some of the money that we didn't expect to have available if one looks at the overall figures. So I'd suggest that we actually look at overall what other things we need to have in as contingencies, so as to give the officers guidance, so that the report can come to finance next week and then subsequently to full council in January for the final precept. But there may still be changes. We've had some very positive news this week with regard to the tax base, which was 124 new properties were included, and also with the improvement on the superannuation contributions, which was a very pleasant surprise, to say the least, as far as I was concerned.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Strong. Councillor Russell.
I'm sorry, but we do have a proposal that's been seconded, and I think we need to go to the vote on that specific item.
Okay.
I mean, I know there's a lot more to discuss.
Indeed, yes,
but
yeah.
As far as guidance to officers is concerned, that's one specific thing that I think needs to go to the vote.
Well, we have some minutes proposed and seconded, so we can do. I'd take Councillor Strong's point, but you're right, we also have a proposal. So, okay, we'll do that now. So all those in favour of the proposal as set out just now? Okay, that's unanimous. Thank you very much. Okay, are there any other issues we want to talk about more broadly? Councillor Skilton. Thank you.
Hiya, thank you. So just before we came into the meeting, it was announced that it seems likely that the national minimum wage will go up by 50 pence an hour, and with that's going to be quite a big impact on salaries. Do we have room to deal with that before we get to January, or what we're doing tonight going to sort of bake in a budget that will, hobble us a bit if we've got to pay more?
Okay, I mean, I'll let Ernest speak, but I'm not aware we have any members of staff on the minimum wage. I think they're much above that, so I'm not sure it would necessarily impact, but I'll allow Ernest
that
to...
it probably will impact on salary spinal, won't it? No?
I wouldn't think so, but I'll allow Ernest to, as our finance expert, to come on.
I think the mayor is right. I think we were told to scrap scale point 2 anyway, which is the lowest, so it's not allowed. But the council has already included estimated 3.5 as a pay increase within the salary on the salary to cater for the scale point changes, so that's already included.
Okay, I take your point, Councillor Skilton. There may be other things, of course, that fall out tomorrow, but I think on that one we're probably okay. Any other comments, questions? Councillor Russell.
One of the things we've been talking about as a council is the situation for Central Bedfordshire Council. We all know that principal council funding has been reduced in real terms over quite a few years now. And central beds find themselves in a difficult position, and they're having to cut back on a lot of non-statutory items. And we've seen some of the issues this year already, with the lack of vegetation cutback reduced from 3 cuts a year to 1 cut a year. And we've been talking about taking some of these, in some ways, minor issues off of central beds. And we've already negotiated one small contract for looking after the transport interchange. And I just wonder whether we should think about how much we want to put in the budget to allow us to do that, because the kinds of things we're talking about, like the vegetation along the footpath down to the station, is important to people in the town. And I think it's something that we should be looking at doing. And I don't know, unless Ernest can tell us differently, whether there's any money in the budget to allow us to do that, which I think would be a good thing for the council to do. And I don't know what figure to suggest, but if we don't put something in that gives us a little bit of leeway, then we can scrap the idea of taking anything from central beds until 2027.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Jones, and I'll come back to Ernest.
Thank you. I agree wholeheartedly with that. I think my agitation on that would be, we took on additional couple of heads earlier on to broaden out the public realm team. So I would be keen to understand how we can maximise efficiencies instead, to compensate for some of that, rather than adding more into the budget potentially. I'd really be really keen to explore that first before adding in additional funding personally. Okay.
Karim or Ernest, have you got anything to add on that central Bedfordshire bidding kind of question?
Yeah, thanks. Thanks, Mr. Chairman. So I can add that officers have been discussing with CBC about a week or so ago, actually, in terms of taking on the additional elements of landscaping maintenance works for across the town. We're still awaiting a response from CBC in terms of them sharing with us exactly the maintenance schedule and a budget sort of allocation, if you like, for that. Once that's forthcoming, we'll be able to kind of put together a plan of what we may or may not be able to take on board, but including the elements like Councillor Russell suggested as well. And obviously with the existing complement of team we have.
Okay, Councillor Strawn, then Councillor Russell.
Just bearing that in mind, there are other contingencies that I understand could be required, such as I think some repairs to buildings and things like that, depending on the surveys that come out. I do wonder whether it might be prudent to possibly put a lump sum into the capital fund to cover such contingencies as may be coming, so that we've got some money there in there, not designated for any particular purpose, but it would give us a little bit of a reserve if we've got expenditure such as a roof repair somewhere or something like that that may be needed, which we can't be specific about at the moment because we're still waiting for various reports. So I do wonder whether a solution to deal with that, if it's acceptable to have put aside a budgeted sum which will cover such issues in as far as we can foreseeably see, so we don't get a nasty shock having come to the budget and just got past the budget and suddenly finding that we've got unexpected expenditure. So I think that if we've got a reserve like that, which could also be used for the purposes such as Councillor Russell has been discussing, depending on circumstances. But I think it would be prudent if we've got that little bit of fat, because we were looking at play equipment that might need to be done under PLOS, which might be needed and things like that. So it just gives the flexibility rather than committing ourselves, because we've seen we have done a very detailed budgeting exercise this year, and we've pulled out a lot of things that we felt were not desirable but not necessary. If we've got that money in the general pot with the general fund, the capital fund that could be used, that might be a solution.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Strawn. Councillor Russell.
I think what Councillor Strawn has just said is right. And taking Councillor Jones' point, I wasn't thinking of more personnel. I was thinking of, if we take things on, we're not sure that we're going to get very much money from central beds, where it's obviously open for negotiation, but we may well need other equipment that we don't now have. But the other side of that is that we've also been talking to some of our neighbouring councils, and they are going to allow us to bid for work in their parishes. And again, that may need more equipment rather than more men, but it would be an income. But we don't know where we are at the moment. So I think if we followed what Councillor Strawn's just said, it gives us a bit of capacity to see how we go forward to take the council on to the next stage, if you like, with looking after the public realm in the widest sense.
Okay, okay, thank you. Councillor Albone.
Yeah, regarding the surveyor's report, this is a question really. I think it's due fairly soon in the new year. So will it be available before the final precept setting meeting?
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
Thanks. So the surveys are happening tomorrow. The reports should be available within about 10 days or so, I think. So we'll do everything we can to get them obviously back so that we can comment on them and see how they feed into the budget discussions.
That's good. Councillor Strawn, your comments earlier about this sort of reserve, is that a proposal or?
Well, I was waiting to float into that.
Okay.
To see whether members felt it was a sensible idea, and indeed whether officers going to shoot me down and tell me that I'm trying to do something illegal.
Okay, well, I don't think we got that impression so far. So I think Councillor Skilton and Councillor Jones, and then we'll see where we go.
Thank you. Just kind of in relation to Councillor Strawn's comments, if we've sort of foreseen building repairs that are needed, surely that should already be in the budget. And I appreciate there are things that can go wrong that we can't foresee, but I thought that's what the general reserve was for and things like that. So sort of, I'm just really conscious that quite a small amount of money in terms of what we can do with a building, say like a roof repair or something, could equate to a percentage point added to the precept. So I'm, just sort of a note of caution before we sort of start putting extra money into the budget, which which may remain there for a while and not be needed.
Understood. Councillor Jones, and then back to Councillor Strawn again.
Just building on Councillor Skilton's point there, before a proposal comes on the table, I suppose I'd be mindful of it being an indication of direction so that it could be properly accounted for, and we can potentially consider what are the equipment, to Councillor Russell's point, that we might be requiring, so we can have a much more accurate proposal before we put any numbers forward. I'd like it to be an informed decision if that's where we're at.
Okay, right. Councillor Strawn, sorry.
Yeah, if I may come back, I understand Councillor Skilton's point, but an observation, which again officers will undoubtedly correct me on, is that we are trying to build up our capital fund from about £25,000 to £100,000 over the next 3 or 4 years. And this might just speed up the process, because we have in the past not necessarily had as much in the capital fund for replacement expenditure of equipment and other things. So there's a precedent from us, and indeed in our policy, this is actually just trying to improve that situation, because the general reserve is the reserve that we are meant to keep according to good practice, to satisfy the auditor's requirements and statutory requirements in case for any reason we should run into financial difficulties. Not that we're anywhere near or approaching that, but that is the reserve which is theoretically meant to be there for a rainy day, and hopefully will never come. And it's a shame that we have to keep it in one respect, because it's not being used, but it is there for a prudent accounting purposes, so that if something unexpected happens, we have got some reserve. But the suggestion, if it went into a capital fund, and it's only preliminary at the moment, it's not final until we set the precept. That's the reason for the suggestion, because we've got the flexibility to appoint it out and before we get to the final budget setting. But that's the reason. But I understand where Councillor Skilton's coming from, but he's trying to give that flexibility.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Foster, and then Councillor Albone.
Okay, whenever we have these conversations, we sort of skirt around the issue, don't we? I think fundamentally what our issue is here is we're skirting around the fact that we're trying to agree a percentage precept increase, and nobody really wants to verbalise that as such. But what we've really got to do is come up with what we feel as a council is an acceptable precept increase that allows us to fund the capital reserves if we need to, without it being either excessive or unnecessary. So that's really the crux of the matter. And we can talk about whether it's, again, to do with agency staff or capital increase or whatever. But fundamentally, the issue is what percentage do we feel is appropriate to increase accordingly? So I think that's just my main point here. Let's focus on that. We may not feel comfortable at this point,
No, sure.
but that's the issue really. Is 2.9% where we want to be? Is 6% where we want to be? And I think that, and it may be it's somewhere in between, or it may be none of those. I just want to be clear that that's what we're talking about.
Thank you, Councillor Foster. Councillor Alban.
Yeah, given that we expect this RICS report to be available in the next 10 days, and we need to set the precept in at the end of January. I think there's time to consider that. We don't know what's going to be in the report. It may be good news. It may be very bad news. We simply don't know. So I think we should wait until that's available before deciding anything.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Russell and Councillor Strong.
But given what Councillor Foster's just said, yes, we're looking at what might be an acceptable level of increase, but looking back over the early 2010s, our principal authority went for 5 years without increasing its precept, which was very nice for taxpayers. But my question in my mind is, and now they're in financial difficulties. And relating that to where we are now, CPI for September, 3.8%. I know that a lot of it has been built into the budget already, but it's not the figure for the overall precept increase. And I think that's the other side of what we need to look at, because Councillor Foster's quite right at what we're doing here, although we're not doing it finally until January.
Yes.
But, I think we have to consider what effect what we're doing now might have over the next few years.
No, absolutely. Councillor Strawn, did you have?
Well, I just thinking in view of Councillor Foster's comments, I suppose somebody's going to have to be very brave and risk being decapitated in the process. But I would have thought that we could have gone comfortably to an overall increase of £35,000 from what we originally budgeted for, including the 10,000 for agency staff, which would be over a 4% increase in the precept overall, but it'd still be just over 3%. As a figure, that would at least give us, that's a starting point. It'd be under the rate of inflation, which I think it is important that we achieve at the moment with what's going on in the financial world. But I think that we must learn the lessons from what has happened with Central Beds Council. We can't afford to go down that route, and we must make sure that we are prudent in our use of money. And I don't think anybody could accuse us of being profligate if we went for something in that increase. So I'll put that forward as a proposal that we give guidance that we're looking at the officers at somewhere in the increase of a £35,000 increase on the precept from that set out here, which would include specifically the 10,000 for the agency staff, which has already been agreed, and would give another 25,000 into contingency funds, which could be determined close to the time of setting the precept.
Okay, so is there a seconder for that proposal? Okay, thank you, Councillor Russell. Okay, did everybody follow that? Yeah, okay, so all those in favour of the motion as set out? All those against? Abstentions? Okay, so I might have to do that again. Were you keeping the fun? I think it was a tie, wasn't it? Okay. Go on, Councillor Jones, sorry.
Can I just confirm that this is indicative at the moment?
It is,
Okay?
it
This
is.
an indicative.
I can do the vote again if you want me to.
Yeah, well, no,
Yes.
I would still probably abstain because I feel there's far too many unanswered questions for me to be able to vote positively towards that. Sorry, Councillor Strong. But it is just an indication of the direction we want to go. And we have so many, to Councillor Albane's point, we have a massive unanswered question that is going to be probably what's going to tip us in either direction right now. So that's why I'm hesitant to be able to put my name next to something where there's too many unknowns right now.
Okay, councillor Strawn.
Point of information, it was proposed as indicative.
Yes.
And that was quite clear, I thought, in the proposal.
Okay. Right, cool. Councillor Thomas.
And we had put the mitigations in and said, bearing these other things in mind, so that's why I was happy to vote.
Okay. Right, what was the numbers? 4. Yeah, okay. Yeah, okay. So I think it was a 5 in favour. So that motion has been carried. Yeah, okay. So I was just double checking because it was whether it was a tie or not. I couldn't quite see, but I think Ernest tells me it was just one above. So that does go forward. But I think taking into account what Councillor Strawn's just said and Councillor Jones has just alluded to as well, it is an indicative thing. It's we've used that word quite a lot in this council chamber in past recent years, but I think we can carry on until January at the very least, and we can sort of finesse things from there really. I think that's probably about it as far as we can get this evening. I'm not sure there's anything else. There's any other burning questions we've got around the budget? I think we've had a good discussion. Councillor Foster.
I agree. There's just the one thing around the fees for the Auto Centre. I know we will discuss it again. I'm just conscious of making sure that we're using the Barnet room, the smaller room, sort of to the best effect, and just whether the fees are where they need to be to generate the sort of the footfall and the income. So I know we've talked about it, and I'm not sure where we've got to with that, but I would like to see the usage of that facility increase, and if that means that we've got more usage and a slight there's higher income because the fees are lower, that might be used for us to think about, because we do have competition around the area.
Absolutely.
It's not being used. So
no, that's a good point, Councillor Foster. And of course, we've got F&GP next week. I think that's right. So maybe Ernest, you could have a look at that in the next, and just have that information ready for a possible question next Tuesday. Yeah. Okay, good. Well, thank you all for that. Right, moving on then. Number 10, back to the main agenda. Number 10, planning applications. We don't have any. Number 12, the accounts. We're going to put that to the full December council meeting. Item number 13, items for information. There aren't any. Back to public open session. Asia, anyone online? No. In our audience, no questions? No. Great. Okay, well, that's the end of the public open session, and I'd like to move to exempt. Great. Okay, moving to exempt. Thank you.